here's a couple that we've thought of. The basic idea would be that when it's fully expanded, it fills the diamond. This means that it could be created out of a single sheet, and you just cut and score that sheet, and then as it expands and contracts, it creates thickness and lets light through. But if it's not a single sheet, then you could vary this geometry quite a bit to allow more light to come through, or to overlap top and bottom, to create folds, kind of like the anechoic chamber. If this were felt, for example, this could start to absorb sound. If you pull that angle all the way down, then it stays level, no matter how far it's compressed. So like the soft shelf could become a bookshelf. And then we can start to get into more complicated folding geometries that could have different effects, and we're kind of playing with the variables here. So this example uses, locks in those variables to one set for all of the panels. But I think one of the games we can play is to say, for example, this area should be a bookshelf, and so we want all of these to come down and be level, and then maybe that smoothly transitions into an area in front of someone's desk, which needs to be opaque, or maybe it's right in front of the refrigerator and it should be more sound absorbing to insulate that area, and that can start to vary across the structure. So let me just pull up the model, though I think that explains the basic idea. So this is the basic idea, and we can vary the parameters to start playing with the level to which these are folded, and the size of them. I haven't quite gotten it to vary across the wall yet, but we're getting there. So there would be some sort of control, like a point, tractor point, or a surface that you could set an area to be a particular set of these variables.
Can you show how it deploys and sort of opens and closes as a screen?
Like this sort of thing?
Yeah. So okay. So it's actually, when it's doing that, it is actually holding all the dimensions the same. It's not making those things shorter, right? It's actually
That's right. Okay. That's right. Yep.
So yep. Open it all the way. Can you open it all the way? It actually comes up off the floor.
Right. So here's kind of the base set of parameters. So opened all the way, it is that flat sheet, or could be a single sheet, and then right as it compresses, then it comes down, and so there has to be some allowance for that.
Sort of counterintuitive in a way, that when it's fully open, that it actually lifts off the floor.
Right. Yeah.
When it's fully closed, when it actually reaches up. So it creates. That's interesting.
Yeah, and I think if the idea were that fully extended, it created the most barrier. It does lift up here, but that's maybe knee level, and I think you could vary the height of this so that were a level that would still create a barrier.
Sure.
So if that's clear, then I guess we'd be open to ideas, but I'm happy to explain more if something's unclear.
Who has what do you guys have in Boston in the way of machines?
We have a 3D printer and a 3D printer. There are a couple laser cutting shops in the Boston area, in Boston. One in particular allows you to take a tutorial and then come in and just use time on the machines. So that seems like a very real possibility. But in the office itself, the only digital fabrication equipment we have is non-digital. We have a wood shop and then a MakerBot 3D printer.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Yahya.
No, I was just gonna mention that we do have a laser cutter in Vancouver if needed.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing that I wanted to mention is I kind of like the curtain idea and the hanging structure. If you want to go ahead and look at the research website on Perkins and Well, there is like an innovation incubator submission that I had very similar sort of geometries, and I can share the screen right now. It might be good to just have a look at in terms of a precedent. Not sure if you see my screen now.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this is like it was a couple or 2 or 3 years ago, but it's very similar sort of pattern making with geometries that I looked at, and it was for a shading device in a building and in Riyadh. But again, like looking at the different.
Oh, this is very similar. Oh man. Okay.
Yeah. So it's looking like very similar type of geometry. So you might want to have a look at it. It was at that time driven by particular ecotect studies, but I think the way that it flexes is very similar. I like the fact that you can make it out of rigid material that would hold its shape or like would hold its size, because that, or like if this is one of the criteria, then it's going to affect what the materials that we can use and whether it can flex or not. So again, I think it's a step forward in a very good direction, but we need to start looking at what type of materials if we want to start seeing how it actually flexes and all that.
Yeah, I like the idea that it could be rigid materials or soft materials, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
What I was going to suggest, and the reason I was asking about the machines, we have laser cutter and actually a CNC router here in Atlanta, and I know that we have different things throughout the firm, and I'm just wondering, what sounds kind of interesting to me at this point, especially since Trigby got about a week left, would be to kind of get this to a point that you could actually just give it to everybody, and then maybe we could just kind of go off and sort of test the next phase as a crowd, and it would be kind of cool to see if just build some mock-ups out of. I mean, my first inclination would just be to kind of laser cut it and mock it up out of like corrugated cardboard or something, just to see how it works and how it functions. Maybe do one in felt. Maybe just kind of look at some different materials. I'd also be interesting to sort of expose it to like maybe our branded environments or some interiors groups in various offices, and maybe even just get some kind of feedback, which might be a good way to kind of also sort of expose them to some of our kind of growing capabilities, both in terms of the computational but also the fabrication stuff. So I don't know. I think that'd be interesting as the next phase, is just to kind of open it up and see where people take it, and it might sort of kind of it might converge to a single solution, or it might actually kind of fork into multiple kind of solutions with the same framework.
That makes sense. Yeah, that would be useful. I think I'm very close to a point where you can control that variability. So maybe for testing purposes, it would be easiest to just keep them all the same. I don't know.
What do you mean by keeping them all the same?
Well, sorry. Keep each diamond the same geometry, right? So it's just a tiling of the same thing. We had imagined that eventually you could have some, the script would create a cut sheet where each element is perhaps unique, and then you get a level of varying across the screen, which is maybe useful in a final setting, but maybe for testing purposes, it's helpful to just keep it simple. And
yeah, I would start with simple, but I mean, we could also, start with simple, and maybe it gets more complex. I don't know. I just think it's interesting to see what others kind of do with it, which was a little bit the original intent of this project was to just sort of see how we sort of crowdsource something across the firm and produce it sort of asynchronously. So. Any other comments?
Yeah, no, I think I agree with you, Josh. It's I do agree that the whole purpose of doing this exercise is actually crowdsourcing, like seeing what the crowd can do with it. So if we can share the scripts or the Grasshopper files at a certain point, and then we start seeing what type of versions of this, like we sort of agree on the bigger strategy of the hanging structure, the folding of materials and all that, but perhaps opening it up for others across the firm to start playing around with this particular model and see what type of variations we can get, and whether some people would take it to more complexity or use it in a simpler way. I think this is something that we should put up for a few other people to play around with the same file.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, we have branded environments here in Atlanta. I'd have no problem sort of showing it to them and getting their feedback, and they might actually have some use for it even outside of just our office.
Yeah, I was just going to say that our interior design group and branded environments can actually even use it in their project if they get excited about it. So
yeah, like I know, for example, in Vancouver, where we might be looking at a magazine rack that we've been discussing putting by the place where we have our coffee machine. So this is something that I know the office could be interested in actually making happen. So people from our interior design department might be interested in actually looking at something like that and playing around with it.
I think it'll be interesting to have, obviously sharing this Rhino files, and each office can have a little group discussion with their office, whether it's branded environment and interior group or any groups they're interested in exploring. But I think it's also important maybe Boston can continue and actually start manufacturing and then have one installation done, and just so that we have something physical so that the other offices can see and be inspired, and and then come up with their own version and showcase theirs as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that just everybody's on the. I mean, I think that there should be a degree of latitude. Like, there's no reason if you want to start making it, just start making it. And if you want to start making it in Boston, then do it. I mean, it gets into then you get into buying materials and things, which we haven't really discussed. But I would start with things that are cheap or free before we get into things that are really sort of ambitious.
Because I think next week is the last week. I mean, even if we can have it manufactured, I think it'll be good. And then, as I spoke to Matthew earlier, he says the installation part, is probably easily done with, even if Trigvy's not there anymore, we can get it installed. But if we can at least conclude the next week, so that at least it's designed, and manufactured, and then, or at least more or less done, so ready to be installed, and this way we can have a full project concluded.
Yeah, I would encourage Trivy to look at the connections. Like, this is the part right now that I think is sort of still wanting development. Basically looking at the connections and how they actually fold, and how the materials would start to contract and expand. And if we should conclude the week of your work, like next week, with perhaps setting up this prototype and making it functional, that it can work and can be produced in Boston, I think we should definitely go ahead with that. And it would be a good prototype once we send this out to various people around the firm, that this is something that has been done. This is the seed of it. This is how it worked in Boston, and let's see if other offices are interested.
Yeah, I can think of a couple of different ways to do the joints, and again, and this isn't sort of me being stingy about budget. I would just do as many sort of prototypes or mock-ups as you can with cardboard and fabric or whatever, just to try to test the joints and test the folds and test the different like where all the corners come together is going to be an issue. How much, whether they're actually tight joints or whether they're sort of joined together by, rings or things that you could just sort of get really cheaply at a hardware store and prototype it that way. And we can get a lot of information in a short period of time just by doing that. So don't just think about the whole screen as a full-scale prototype, but think about just, how many different joint types can we look at in a short period of time with very minimal material.
That makes sense. Yeah, that would be good.
Cool.
And Trygve, you want to pull up the Pulse site? And the link here. Yeah. So he's been posting more information here, and a lot of the meeting videos is also posted there. And he's made 2 other videos discussing about the design aspect of it. And you can go ahead and put the Rhino files up there as well.
Okay. Yeah. And I'll continue. These were 2 preliminary ones, but I have several other things I could demonstrate, so I'll do that.
Great.
Yep.
That's great.
So hopefully by next week we can get to more of the material, the joints, and have a good prototype set up. And, I think we'll get closer to actually installing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I see Patrick joined us. Patrick, you have any words that you want to talk about? I know Boston office has been involved and exposed on this project.
Yeah, sorry I'm late. No, I think it's coming along great. I do think we need to get now into the materiality of it and kind of nuts and bolts before we get it too far along. So I think that's the next step. Do some prototyping.
Excellent. Okay. Well, we'll look forward to it for the Monday meeting.
Yeah. We'll have a full wall for you Monday meeting.
Josh, are you going to be available for the Monday meeting?
I hope so. I know that I'm often not, but let me see. No, I'm free Monday.
Okay.
I'll be here Monday.
Yeah, because I just, we've discussed in previous sessions, things about what we want to do for the year and the budget and all that, and I just wanted to share these with you.
Sure.
So it'd be good to have that talk on Monday.
Sure. I mean, we can even have that talk not on that call, if necessary.
Sure. Okay.
Actually, Monday. Yeah, Monday's a good time. I don't know. I'll talk to you.
Okay. Sounds good, Josh.
All right.
All right. Is there any other ideas, feedback that you want to give to Trygve?
Feel free to email me if you think of something. Because, I think we'll just try to test a bunch of small things so we can hopefully go through that rapidly. And if you have an idea, I'd love to see if it works. So, thanks.
All right.
All right.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Thanks
And
a lot.
we'll talk again on Monday.
Thank
All right.
you. I recorded
thanks,
the